Hi there! Thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoy what it contains and you subscribe to the channel, like the video and click the bell for further notifications. If you've watched any of the +1 videos, you will have seen a small person showing me how to play Minecraft because I hadn't really played it before. I personally learnt a lot from the small one, Hulkie as we called him. So I then decided to have a go solo, using the full version of Minecraft to create a world of my own. I had several abortive attempts in which I found myself getting killed very easily and losing everything that I was carrying. But what I've now got is a world that I've survived for a little bit longer. You can see I'm level 18 from the bottom. And what I found with the survival version is that when nighttime comes around and you've got things like zombies and skeletons and exploding characters hunting you down, the best thing to do is to create yourself a very quick shelter, shut them out, and if you haven't got a bed in that shelter, just wait out until morning comes. So in this game, I decided to sort of take Hulkie's example and build a shelter into a mountainside, which, as you can see, I've done. And I've now been able to expand it to include several features. Up there you will see a sign that says "to the mines," and if we go down here, then I get to a point where I start a deep mine excavation, looking primarily for iron ore, because iron ore is still a bit of a challenge to find in this game. I mean, initially I was trying to find another exit to it, but I think that part of the mountain I've been digging into is extensive and doesn't really show up very much on the map because it's at the edge of the map. So I'll come back to that later if you want to see how far down I've dug with that one. Let me just shut that door. I then went along here, and this was fairly solid, and at one point I also went down deep down here, and because you can see I've got another sign to the mines, but I also went outside, dug my way back in, and found out I came very close to where that was. So there are at least 2 exits now to this mountain dwelling. I did obviously find some iron, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to create some of the things I have. But the big project I wanted to do was to build this house, and I got this house blueprint off the internet, and I will include on the video a logo of the website I got it from. I did try and do a capture of the website to show you all the steps, but for some reason my capture software wouldn't capture it all. Now this house has 3 levels, and you start off actually by building the basement, which is down here. I haven't yet decided what to include in this basement, because at one point I had a crafting table down here. And occasionally you do get monsters spawning down here, which is nice and easy for farming the crafting materials that they carry. But I've moved that crafting table, and I've moved it up here because in some respects it's a lot easy to come in on the ground level to do your crafting. There's also an upper level which I will turn into bedrooms, possibly other rooms depending on what kind of kit I can craft. But you can see I've put a bed in here that I can use to rest. And the final part of this house is an attic or a loft. Now this is a bit cramped and a bit crowded because I did have a little bit of trouble designing the roof and trying to work out how to use all these step bricks to do the roof. But again, there's room up here for storing things like maybe having an enemy captured and held hostage in there, or some other nefarious things that we could do with it. But You'll see for now that the house is pretty empty, but which gives a lot of scope for some further development work on that. Now, when I first built this house, it didn't have windows because, again, if we look at the map, there's not a lot of obvious sand around. You can see it's quite a lot of green and the odd bit of blue, but that blue is tended to come from underground streams and lakes. So one of the challenges I had was to actually go and find enough sand to make the glass to fill in the windows, which I did. And if I bring the map up again, I'll highlight with a call out the area that I got the sand from. But it's a fair old journey, and as you can see already, the sky's darkening and we're heading into night time. And so making that journey had to be done right at the beginning of the day so that I could make sure that when I found the sand, I had enough time to mine some and get back in time before I started getting attacked by nighttime creatures. I will show you what I've done with that when the next day comes around. You'll also see that this house is built predominantly from wood. Obviously I've got the cobblestone step blocks to use the decoration between the floors, but the basement, the floors, the walls, the roof, well, not the roof because that's cobblestone, but there's a lot of wood in here. So what I found out quite earlier on is if I actually farm the leaves off trees, it will drop saplings and branches. So I basically, like a good environmentalist, is when I chopped trees down, I replanted them. And that way I had a renewable source of wood that I could keep farming in order to actually create enough to build that house. I'm going to go in here and sleep to get rid of that exploding creature I've just seen. Because that was the other thing, is when I was building that house, explosions kept knocking out blocks that I'd built in there, and it became quite a pain having to repair it as I was going through the building process. So with any luck, if that creature's there and has exploded, it's not done any harm to the house. Oh, this is... These are not despawned yet, so long as I fight them away from the house, it doesn't matter if they explode, apart from killing me, obviously. That was the other lesson I learned from the survival mode, is that if I was actually going to fight these creatures and for what they could drop, was to do it close to my respawn point. That way it didn't take a great deal of effort to go and get my equipment back. Now what you can see I've done here is I've cut out a path with some stone steps to make traversing those different levels easier. And this is a path heading off to the area where I found an abundant supply of sand for me to create glass. And as you can see, it goes up and down the sides of mountains, for want of a better word to use them. But there's going to be a point where, and I've not quite finished it yet, but there is going to be a point where I start to dig a gorge to actually get through this area without having to climb the mountain all the time, because it slows you down in terms of the journey to the other side to have to keep climbing up all these dirt blocks. And so there will be a point, as I say, where I'm going to cut through a gorge to make it quicker. But again, that's going to be one where I'm going to have to be mindful of the cycle, day-night cycle, so that I'm not too far away from where I want to be when the night time comes around. Because I have found creatures, particularly that explode on you without any warning, very mean in the survival mode, and I've lost an awful lot of equipment as a result of that. Now, as you can see, I'm coming through to what looks like an inland lake, and this inland lake has a lot of sand blocks. As you can see, the very light things underwater, and those also on top. But you can also see on the far side torches and a door. So what I've now been able to do is to actually create myself a second base, which is primarily going to be my sand farming and my glass production base. So if I open this door here, you can see I've started to excavate it out a little bit. There's no bed here yet because, funnily enough, I need to actually find some more sheep in order to have the wool to build the bed. But you could see outside that this is an abundance of birch trees, and I should have an axe to cut those down. Nope. So let's use my pickaxe, because obviously I'm going to need the birch trees and the wool to make the bed. I mean, in this sort of forest area, it's not a forest, but I suppose it is a forest of birch trees, I'm not quite so concerned about replanting at this stage, because there is an abundance of supply. But certainly when I was building the house there wasn't, so replanting and regrowing the trees became an essential source of wood for building that house. Okay. And as you can see, there's loads of sand, so in some ways I may even make this my glass factory area, which could become the precursor to an industrial zone. But as you can see, there are no sheep around, so what I'm going to have to do is farm the sheep in a different area, and either make the bed and carry it with me, or bring the wool over and make a birch bed. Now, we're already over 10 minutes for this video, so I'm just going to stop at this point, and I will, in the next video, show you further progress I make with this area. Thank you again for watching.